The courtroom was quiet, but the silence carried a weight that nobody could ignore. For months, fans of Love and Marriage, Huntsville had watched the public drama between Martell Holt and Shari unfold like a reality show that never ended. But this was no longer about TV. This was no longer about entertainment. This was real life, with real consequences, and the stakes could not have been higher.
Be sure
when
to
Martell
like,
made his latest
share,
move, he
and
thought he could walk
subscribe.
into that courtroom with the same charm that had carried him for years.
Okay, Carson Blue,
He
this
thought
is
the
crazy
suit,
because
the smile, and the rehearsed words would once again tip the balance in his favor. But what happened next shocked everyone. Because this time, Melody wasn't responding with words, she was responding with evidence. For the longest time, Martell lived off image. He was the polished man with the perfect look. He dressed sharp, he carried himself with confidence, and he knew how to say just enough to win sympathy. Online, he crafted the persona of a loving father, a man who had been misunderstood, someone who was just trying to heal.
he was trying to shock
And for years, that
these
image
court
worked.
documents to
People wanted to believe him.
certain content creators.
Even
like
after
shock 'em.
scandal, even after betrayal, there were always fans who gave him the benefit of the doubt. But behind the cameras, behind the Instagram lives, behind the carefully chosen words, Martell was unraveling that he had built his entire reputation on perception. He understood how to use social media like a stage. Every post, every caption, every late-night rant, it was all part of the
I
act.
never talk dirty to you. What the
He
fuck
mastered
you get
the
that
art
from?
of saying just
You
enough
seem like
without
it's that
ever
dude was
taking true
talking
responsibility.
Freaking nasty
If he
to her
cried a
guys, you know what
little,
I'm saying?
fans would soften.
Melody is not
If he posted about healing, people would give him grace. If he threw in some vague quotes about betrayal, others would assume he was the victim. It was a cycle that kept him in the conversation and kept people guessing. Not enough to be fully exposed, not enough to be completely cancelled, but just enough to survive. But what Martell didn't count on was Melody's silence. He thought that if she wasn't clapping back, she was defeated. He thought that if she wasn't posting in response to his rants, she was retreating. He thought her quiet meant surrender. But Melody was playing a different game entirely. She wasn't interested in winning internet points. She wasn't interested in the back and forth. While Martell was busy performing online, Melody was documenting. Every message, every document, every detail, she was gathering it all, not for social media, but for the courtroom. And that's why, when Martell made his latest move, the response wasn't loud. It was quiet. But that quiet carried the power to shake the entire narrative he had been building. The leaks that began circulating online were not gossip. They were not fan theories. They were real, documents, screenshots, financial records. That revealed a very different side of Martell. These weren't just embarrassing details, they were potential evidence. And the wildest part was that these leaks lined up perfectly with what fans had long suspected. That Martell's charm was a mask. That his story about being the misunderstood man was just smoke and mirrors. And that behind closed doors, he was the one creating the chaos, not Melody. For years, the public had been split. Was Melody bitter? Was Martell the victim?
perfect. I didn't expect
Was
her
this
to be
just two
perfect.
people dragging out a
Got more
messy
children
breakup
between
for
the two of you.
attention? But when the leaks came, the pieces started fitting together in a way that could no longer be denied.
Who watched the show?
Suddenly, the story wasn't about Melody being dramatic.
Everybody gonna go through something.
It wasn't
So all
about
those
Martell
women
being
probably go
unlucky. It was about truth, and the truth was not flattering for Martell. Even more shocking was the timing of everything. Just as the whispers of court cases and custody matters began circulating, Ariane Curry reappeared on social media. Posting selfies, writing captions about growth, and trying to reframe her story as something romantic. But people saw through it. They remembered how she came into the picture. They remembered the interviews, the shade, the denial. And the timing was just too perfect. Her reappearance looked less like coincidence and more like strategy. Almost as if someone was trying to distract the public from the real story, Martell's mounting legal problems. But here's the thing, the public wasn't buying it anymore. The internet has memory. Fans remember the cheating, the lies, the contradictions. They remember how Ariane was introduced into the narrative, and they weren't interested in any kind of romantic rewrite. Instead, they were connecting dots. They were pulling up old clips from the show, comparing them to the leaks, and realizing that the story they had been fed for years might have been manipulated. And if the rumors about Martell coaching cast members, staging moments, and pressuring production were true, then this was more than personal drama. This was about professional misconduct, breaches of contract, and fraud. Meanwhile, Melody's approach was the complete opposite.
No.
She wasn't on social media posting her every thought. She wasn't dropping subliminal quotes or calling Martell out directly. Instead, she was focused on her work. She was signing deals, showing up at events, and building her brand. Every move she made was intentional, professional, and calculated. And the quiet confidence she carried with her was louder than anything Martell could post at 2 a.m. on Instagram. People began to notice. The same audience that once questioned Melody's motives was now seeing her in a different light. They saw a woman who had been painted as emotional for years, now operating with discipline and control. They saw someone who was no longer reacting, but simply moving forward.
Share, and subscribe.
And the silence, backed by evidence, spoke volumes. It said, "I don't need to explain myself. The truth will do that for me." In the courtroom, silence means strategy. Lawyers respect it. Judges pay attention to it. And when Melody walked in with her folder of documentation, with her team, with her strategy, the silence was no longer absence, it was presence. It was preparation. Martell's words, his posts, his tears, none of that mattered when faced with black and white proof. And that's what truly scared him. Because for the first time in a long time, he wasn't the one controlling the script. Martell had always believed that as long as he could tell his story first, he could control the way people saw him. And for years, he was right. He spoke with confidence, he acted like the victim, and he made sure his image was polished for cameras and fans. But what he didn't realize was that the more he talked, the more evidence he created. Every Instagram post, every live video, every caption about betrayal, people weren't just watching anymore. They were screenshotting. They were saving. They were comparing his words with what had already been proven. And little by little, Martell's own voice became his biggest enemy. The difference between Martell and Melody was clear. While Martell was busy putting on a show, Melody was quietly collecting facts. And facts don't get old. They don't expire. They don't need filters or captions. They just exist, waiting for the right moment to be presented. That's why her silence shook the courtroom. Everyone expected a fight. Everyone expected her to lash out, to argue back, to scream her side of the story. But instead, she let the documents speak. She let the receipts tell the truth. And that truth was harder for Martell to fight than any argument she could have made. The leaks that had begun spreading online only added fuel to the fire. They showed contracts, text messages, financial records, and conversations that painted a very different picture than the one Martell had crafted. If the rumors were true, Martell wasn't just a man caught in a messy breakup. He was someone who had been trying to manipulate storylines, pressure producers, and even control how his castmates were portrayed. If that was proven, it wouldn't just be embarrassing. It could be damaging to his career. Breaches of contract, fraud, misconduct, these weren't just personal issues. They were professional landmines, and while Martell continued to act as though this was just about emotions, just about two people who couldn't get along, Melody understood the bigger picture. This wasn't about arguing. This wasn't about social media wins. This was about accountability. She wasn't trying to prove herself to fans. She was making sure the court had everything it needed. She wasn't trying to win sympathy. She was trying to win outcomes. That shift in approach was powerful. For years, Melody had been painted as the one who was emotional, bitter, dramatic.
90% women.
But now, she wasn't reacting at all.
And all those women.
She wasn't posting about Martell.
Go through something. So all those
she wasn't shading him online. She was focused on her work, her kids, her future. And every time Martell posted something messy, he looked more desperate, while Melody looked stronger. The contrast couldn't have been clearer, even the audience began to change. At first, many people wanted to give Martell the benefit of the doubt. They wanted to believe he was just a man who had made mistakes. But over time, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Every time he claimed he was healing, more receipts came out showing that he was still playing games. Every time he claimed he was growing, someone pulled up proof that he hadn't changed at all. And slowly, sympathy turned into frustration. Instead of feeling sorry for him, people started holding him accountable.